Here, this time bringing you some highlights from the Game Awards show that just happened last night from, of course, the time of this video. And like pretty much every Game Awards show, it was a real mixed bag. Of its roughly 3.5 hour runtime, less than an hour of that was actually spent on the awards, and the winners of said awards given an incredibly short amount of time to speak, while the rest of the show was pumped full of ads for mobile games, with the occasional rattling off of major awards. But nonetheless, it's a show that comes with a bunch of announcements, which is the bulk of what we're going to cover here, but the show itself did have its good moments as well. So let's get into those. Though a final word on that subject, this is a PC channel and I'm mostly covering the things that are relevant to myself and what I'm going to be covering and reviewing potentially, or just otherwise had something to say about, and that there were a significant amount of games showcased and announced. So if I don't mention anything here, by all means, feel free to bring it up down in the comments section below. Kicking things off the right way with Baldur's Gate 3 being the ultimate winner of the night, so to speak, with a full 6 awards to their names, but the most important one as well with Game of the Year, which I believe that game has most certainly earned. In fact, seeing a CRPG actually win that award is truly special to me as a channel who covers them extensively, so it was great seeing them get the recognition they deserved. But what is more, right after this they announced that they are dropping the game onto Xbox officially right at the same time they won this, so it's out now, though that was more or less expected. Great news all around though. Moving on from there, however, we had a bit of, I would say, a bizarre announcement with Hideo Kojima and his upcoming title OD. And while it's cool to see an announcement for his next project, I gotta tell you this announcement was not great, which is mostly why I'm talking about it. It was accompanied by a trailer that explained basically nothing outside of some people who will be involved on the project, and he went on to give several statements about how the game is planning on being an interactive horror experience that transcends the boundary of a game in some way, but again, all that is very cryptic, and I genuinely couldn't tell you what to expect from this game other than it's going to be horror themed. I'm sure it'll be good, the guy's got a great track record, but this announcement was just weird. Next up, we have the announcement of God of War Ragnarok's free DLC coming out in just a few days, December 12th I believe it was, which is going to be a roguelike element that has some extra story on top of it as well, as it takes place in Valhalla. Mostly I wanted to mention this just because they dropped it as free DLC, which I thought was a really cool move, because personally I still haven't played it, because I don't really plan to until it drops on PC, as I have plenty to do as it is. Moving right along, however, Arcane's Lion Studio announced that they are working on a adaptation of Marvel's Blade, which is interesting for a few reasons, I would say. Mostly because seeing Bethesda work on a Marvel game just wasn't something I was expecting, I suppose. But given Arcane's track record and approach to combat, I think this could actually be a really interesting game to play. But as of right now, details are a little scarce. This was mostly just an announcement that they're working on it. Certainly has potential, but we'll have to wait and see. Next up, we have Sega announcing 5 different remakes, specifically for Jet Set Radio, Shinobi, Golden Axe, Streets of Rage, Crazy Taxi, and apparently more to come. They didn't really give any information besides the fact that they were working on these, so there's not much else to say, but honestly, pretty cool to see. But then we have Light No Fire. From the developer of No Man's Sky, we have yet another very ambitious open world title that seems to focus on building, crafting, and just general survival. It's apparently going to procedurally generate a planet the size of Earth, but overall, we'll have to wait and see if they can actually deliver on things straight away from launch, though I imagine their experience with No Man's Sky has given them some, let's say, experience dealing with that kind of thing. So it'll be interesting to keep an eye on this one. After that, however, Final Fantasy XVI announced some DLC. One was out yesterday, or is essentially out now already, and then another one will be coming in spring of next year. Both of which adding new story chapters ahead of the final battle of the title, and I mostly mention these because Final Fantasy XVI is yet another game I am waiting to come to PC at some point, as it was originally slated to release on PC, or at least they mentioned it in passing, happening before the end of this year, but obviously we're at the end of the year, so I'm not exactly holding my breath. But then we have No Rest for the Wicked. From the developers of the Ori titles, we have a game that goes in a bit of a different direction, I would say, as this is an action RPG in the vein of Diablo, but unlike Diablo, this game is apparently going to have a very deliberate combat system that something like Diablo 4 dabbled in but seemed afraid to actually commit to. Outside of that, the game apparently takes place in a kingdom where the long-standing king dies, only for the country to be torn apart in a war of succession, though what struck me the most about this particular title was simply the art style. It looks gorgeous, and given that I love a good ARPG, I'm excited to check this one out. No release date on that yet though. Next up we have Exodus, a sci-fi title from Archetype Entertainment, and for those who don't know, that is a development studio that works for Wizards of the Coast, and while it's still clearly a little bit early, we're apparently going to be taking on the role of a traveler who's exploring the universe, trying to dodge an enemy known as a Celestial, but also dealing in time dilation. That is to say, events will take place over a significant span of time thanks to time passing differently in certain locations, and at a glance I would say it reminds me a lot of Mass Effect. Looks pretty cool at a glance, but again, just one of those things we'll have to see if it manages to carve out a unique place for it. Moving right along, however, we then have Black Myth Wukong. Haven't heard too much about this game in quite some time, though we have seen some trailers of it previously. It takes place in China and follows a classical novel known as Journey to the West. But I would say the big news here is the trailer revealed the release date to be August 19th of next year, 2024, so we shouldn't have to wait too much longer to find out exactly what this particular game is about. From there, we have Last Sentinel. This seems to be an action-oriented game that takes place in a futuristic Tokyo that, while open world, has a big emphasis on its narrative. Its trailer looked to be mostly cinematic, so it's hard to say what this looks like gameplay-wise, but it definitely seems to be going for a sort of dirty cyberpunk vibe. Definitely catches my interest at a glance, however. Recently, though, I've been talking a lot of Warhammer 40k with the recent release of Rogue Trader, just yesterday from the time of this video again. Naturally, I wanted to mention a little bit about Space Marine 2. This game recently suffered a very large delay. It was originally due out this year, but has since been pushed back to September 9th, 2024. Didn't really get any new information here, not that you necessarily need one, as we're simply going to be fighting off Tyranid hordes as a Space Marine from the Imperium of Man in Warhammer. Looks straightforward enough, but again, big news there was the moving of the release date, as it originally, after its initial delay, didn't have one technically, so nice to see. But then we have the first Berserker, an action game that puts us in the role of Kazan, a hero betrayed and then exiled from a kingdom who seeks to regain his lost glory through a path of vengeance, which is a straightforward enough tale for an action game. What really struck me here, though, was the visuals, though otherwise I do admit it looks like a lot of action games I've seen. Second to last, though, we have Stormgate, a sort of spiritual successor of StarCraft, coming from developers that used to work on StarCraft and other games from Blizzard, which means, of course, that this is a real-time strategy title. The big announcement here was that it is coming to early access in summer 2024. It just recently started a Kickstarter campaign on December 5th that was already funded that day. So if you've been craving some real-time strategy or something StarCraft related, it might be something worth looking into. Though I mentioned this game because in particular here, I think this one in particular is going to struggle to get out of StarCraft Shadow. So it'll be interesting to see how they manage that. And then right here towards the end, more of a mention, as it was mostly a cinematic tease for a game from Ikumi Nakamura and her new studio that she founded after leaving Tango Gameworks, who worked on Ghostwire Tokyo. She was the creative director for that game for a time, which I mentioned because, somewhat like Ghostwire Tokyo, this game takes place in a futuristic Japanese city, presumably Tokyo, but it wasn't stated, with a group of heroes fighting off various enemies. And while it was just a teaser, I thought it looked pretty cool, so something I'll be keeping an eye on. And while that covers the specific things I wanted to talk about, there are, again, still a ton of more things that were announced. Some of it, however, was console specific, like Rise of Ronin looked really cool, but that's only for PlayStation 5, so I didn't really feel the need to mention it. So if you feel I forgot anything, by all means leave it down in the comments section below, which of course means to like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. But regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom and have